Yet again, good evening to everybody. And I think taxation, that's the big talk point of Union Budget 2025-2026. Every time we would always say the middle class, the salaried class, the arm army is still looking for something more. But this time, I think the finance minister has given that tax bonanza and perhaps the historic way in which 5 lakh additional rupees has been reduced. So 12 lakh rupees and you don't have to pay any taxes. I'll start off with you, Mr. Jain. 46 years of practice in the taxation industry. Have you ever seen such kind of a tax bonanza being doled out for the middle class? And how happy are you on a scale of 1 to 10?
You see, I have been in this industry for almost 5 decades now. And I believe such big tax concession has not been announced in the past at any time. Just imagine 7 to 12 lakh, how much it means. Just more than 60%, 70% almost your income is jumping. I have seen when I started my career, 4,000 rupees is the basic exemption, then going to 4,500, 5,000, 6,000, etc. And even 10 years back, it was just 1 lakh, 1,50,000, 2 lakh, and now we see 12 lakh rupees, no tax. And that too, just look, Indian GDP is roughly $2,500, which gets converted into 2 lakh rupees. 6 times of per capita GDP is the income which an individual is not required to pay any tax. You can expect more for a finance minister. And all this could be possible because of the impressive collection on personal front.
Yes.
You would see 2024-25, the income tax collection on personal front was very impressive. And that gave, I think, some width and the leverage to the finance minister to make an announcement, big bang announcement. I said 2 sixers in one go.
2 sixers in one go. Okay, Mr. Nangia, I'll take your word also on it. You tell us what was your first reaction when you heard the finance minister announce this, and who stands to benefit the most? Of course, 12 lakhs and our income up to that is a no-brainer. But beyond that also, who stands to benefit the most?
See, there's something more to that also. Let's see the demographic of the taxpayer in India. 23-24, there were 5.25 crores people who filed a tax return and they didn't pay 1 rupee of taxes, which constitutes 67% of your tax pay. And then you go to the next level from 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs, 10 lakhs to 1 crore. For the first time ever, you found there were more than 2.5 crores population who paid the taxes. So what happened? There's a massive ballooning of the taxpayers in the middle sector from 5 lakhs to 1 crore. Initial level is which was like that. Government has been increasing rebates, so you're not feeling the burden of it. But middle taxpayer never ever paid this level of taxes. So I did a little bit of research actually, what could be the reason behind it. So I found 3 reasons. 1, growth of income which has taken place. Second, there's a growth of other income, property income, rental income, shares income, other income. That is the reason for that. Third could be the most likely, I believe the third could be their whole income is getting reported automatically. There's an AI system. Government is making a balance sheet today. In balance sheet, every asset, every liability, every profit, every loss is reported there. So government is capturing the figure. You have no choice but to report to that. So what happened in the way, the middle segment grew a lot. But immediately after 1 crore, there's a massive fall. You find after 1 crore to 5 crore, there were only 3,50,000, and above 5 crores, there were 58,000. So there was an immediate fall. So the segment is now ripe for the government for any policy making is from 5 lakhs to 1 crore.
Wonderful. That, ladies and gentlemen, apart from 46 years, is 45 years of experience and another 25. So all put together, we have 120 years of tax experience on this panel, so we might as well take it very, very seriously. Personal taxation, ladies and gentlemen, has been taken care of. What about the direct tax code? In less than a week from now, we'll have, Mr. Jain, a new direct tax code. 1, will it be simpler? 2, will it make lives for tax experts such as yours easier? And 3, over time, will we pay less taxes?
I see this tax bill, I will say not now, I think tax code, has been in the offing for the last more than 20 years. But now I see this is going to see the light of the day, maybe day after tomorrow, as I can see the agenda of the parliament, so I think it is likely to be introduced. And as the finance minister has said, this is going to be simple, concise, and in a language which is easily understandable both by the taxpayer and the tax administration. So now, presently, the Income Tax Act is of roughly 800 pages. And I was listening to the finance minister in this program today itself. She said it will be less than or almost 50% of that. I believe it's going to be in 400 pages. Language is going to be simple and, of course, easily understandable. And this act being now 60 years old, so whatever the experience, all tax administration, taxpayer, that will be, I think, taken into consideration. And I hope this will be much, much easier for taxpayer also to understand. And of course, tax professional like us also to understand.
Mr. Nangia, what are you expecting?
See, before I say, let me, again, small analogy. When this thought was started to revamp the income tax law, we used to call DTC, Direct Tax Code. That was 2009 Act around. Then it became a comprehensive review of income tax 2024, and now it is a new income tax bill 2025. It's exactly the same thing, but the nomenclature was changing. And I must tell you a very interesting fact. In India, the first time the income tax was levied was in 1860. That was 185 years back, where 200 rupees was a basic exemption, and the tax rate was 2%. Worldwide, the tax came in England in 1188, and where the tax rate was 10%. So tax is nothing new. England, you see the developed country, I can tell you, people, the tax rate at the PIT level, the highest is 67%, and people comply close to 100%. So the people in England always had paying big taxes very regularly, and that was the reason 1188, the tax was first time levied in UK. Existing Income Tax Act have 298 sections. Then you have clauses, sub-clauses, 25 chapters, rules. Then you have schedules, then you have subsections. Notwithstanding, it became actually very clumsy. And then what happened, 1/3 of the tax law have become redundant. Either they're sunset clauses or they're meaningless or they have no relevance left in the law. In the right wisdom, the government decided to change it. And a very good statement given by the FM today morning with me. She says, we are going to trust the taxpayer now. That's the change, basically. And I'm going to make the law easy, actually, so that you are comply to the law. And she said it, we'll only scrutinize close to 1% of the people. This is a very big faith they're doing it. And I'll tell you why she's saying it. The reason is every data of yours, your whole balance sheet is captured by them. You travel beyond them, they'll catch you. So you can't run away today, except one thing, you have to pay the taxes. And government, if collection continues to go up higher, government will make it easy for you, basically, to comply with it. And I'm seeing cases where there's been no scrutiny being done again and again, just because they're seeing your balance sheet matches to the internal system.
Fair point. Let's also get Mr. Pratik Jain onto the conversation. You largely look at indirect taxes. That's largely also taken away from the union budget. But I want to understand, there's this entire notion that most taxpayers have that we are a very overtaxed population. Despite making the new tax regime more palatable, adding more sweeteners, is the GST regime also, if we add on to it, are we really overtaxed when we compare globally?
No, I don't think so. I mean, now the income tax rates, as Mr. Ved Jain and Mr. Nangia would bear with me, is as competitive as anybody else. I mean, the corporate side, as well as on the individual side. On GST also, the revenue neutral rate, which when we started, it was supposed to be around 15%, and now it is around 11.6%. That means that's much lower than what the revenue neutral rate was if you take the earlier taxes before GST. So that way, I mean, the government has been trying to moderate the GST rates as well. There is a group of ministers which is working on the GST rationalization, and one hopes that over the next few months they will come up with their recommendation, which should further rationalize it. So I don't think that we are overtaxed either in terms of indirect taxes nor in terms of direct taxes. You need a lot of money for infrastructure, for the development, for education, and so on. So I don't think that's really the case. Now, coming to the collection part of it, if you look at the next year estimate,
yes,
income tax is supposed to grow at around 14%. Of course, you would imagine that 1 lakh crore we have given back to the people, and that 1 lakh crore should hopefully be invested, and it will garner more GST revenues to the government. The GST revenue, the indirect tax revenue, is slated to increase only by 10.9%. Whereas the nominal GDP would be growing above.
Is there a concern of slowing down in terms of collection?
I mean, if you look at the last month's collection of GST, that has been quite robust. It is more than 1,90,000 crores. But yes, so if you look at last 4 or 5 months, the GST collection has been slowing down a bit, than what government expected. But there has been a normal slowdown in the growth, right? Particularly on the urban side. So one would expect that to happen. But the next year target of 10.9% increase, I think, is very, very achievable. I don't think that should be a problem.
Pratik, I think the biggest elephant in the room is the Trump tantrum that we are seeing in terms of tariffs. You've seen Mexico and Canada capitulate. Both of them are now discussing how to roll back that 25% threat. Where does India stand in this picture? And do you see this problem getting solved globally?
So I think India has taken a middle path, right? So there is one extreme approach to say, local is becoming global, right? So and that's what you see some of the countries that you talked about. But as far as India is concerned, there is a statement that Finance Minister made in the budget saying that India wants to be integral part of the global supply chain. We are not using tariff as a protectionist measure, nor against a particular country to say, I want to discourage import of particular goods from a particular country. That's not the stand that we've taken. In fact, there has been a massive rationalization of custom duty structure. This time from 14, 15 rates, they've come down to 7. The maximum rate has gone down from 150% to 70%. Of course, the effective duty rate in most cases remains the same because you've imposed some corresponding cesses as well. But clearly, the intention is not to use tariff as part of the global war or trade war or things like that. Yes, they have looked at some of the items where they have reduced duties, and you could possibly say that it does benefit imports from a particular country, let's say import of two-wheelers, because most of the import of two-wheelers are happening from countries where India has a free trade agreement, but with US we did not have a free trade agreement, so it does in that sense benefit US imports, but it's not a large-scale thing. Now what we'll have to see over the next few months is that does India then identify few of the items coming from a particular country and try and give it a most favored nation kind of a treatment and say, okay, I'm willing to reduce duties on some of these products in return of X, Y, Z. And that I think is possible. I think the economic survey also indicated that we're perhaps moving away from a larger free trade agreement structure to more bilateral trade agreement structure. And that we'll have to see. But India has chosen clearly a middle path at this point in time, not very aggressive, not a protectionist measure, but more forward-looking sort of measure.
Okay. Mr. Ved Jain, I'll come to you now. We were talking about slowing growth concerns as far as GST collections are concerned. I want to understand about direct tax collections as well. And after this measure of extending that tax bonanza, is there a fear of narrowing of the tax base, or will it become wider? Because that has been the original thought process and the intention of the government to widen the tax base. We are still a country with only 8.6 crore people who pay taxes. And the perception is that we are doing the heavy lifting for a large section of the population. So will that tax base be widened, or is there a risk of narrowing because of this tax cut?
See, Sakshi, there are different ways to look at the same issue. If we look at the tax base and number of people filing tax returns, I will say definitely it is going to go up. We have started 5 crore 3 years back, and now we are 8.5 crore plus. And I see that this soon going to cross 10 crore. But if you look at the number of actual taxpayers, with this increase from 7 to 12 lakh, definitely, I think in the next 2-3 years, these numbers slowly are going to go down. Because, see, 7 to 12 lakhs is a large number of people. But at the same time, as the economy grows up, and the
1 crore more people
people's income will also go up, and so more and more people will come in the tax net. But one thing which intrigues me on this issue always is that we want to simplify the tax law. If we want to simplify, then why we expect a person who is not required to pay tax to file the tax return? Now, this is a very, I think, sensitive issue, a larger issue.
Yeah.
Now, we say a person who has an income up to 12 lakh rupees need not file a return. And we want to simplify the tax law. Now take a case of a factory worker who has an income or salary income of 50,000 rupees per month, and the total income in the year is 6 lakh rupees or some here or some other income. He is not required to pay tax, but the law mandate that he will be required to file the tax return. Because any person having income above rupees 4 lakh is required to file the tax return because he gets a rebate, not a tax payable. So that creates a situation where a person, despite not being required to pay tax, there being no tax liability, still he is required to pay tax. So that's an issue. But why this issue is on the table? Because we don't want to erode the tax base. We say the number of taxpayers on the issue. As regard your first question was that about the collections, I'm saying collections are definitely going to improve substantially.
Okay.
Just look at the budget of 2000, 2001. It will be, I think, music to some of the people who are may not be aware. Our total income tax collection in the year 2001 was projected was 64,000 crore rupees. 64,000 crore rupees. And now in this budget, the total collection is more than 24 lakh crore rupees from income tax. And in one go, the finance minister has given a concession of 1 lakh crore rupees vis-a-vis total collection of 64,000 crore rupees way back in 2000, 2001.
Right.
So Indian economy is going up. It is either the numbers which we, of course, 6.8, which we are projecting, but the way economy is going to grow up. But still, I am quite confident direct tax collections is going to go substantially up. One thing which I normally say, as we raise the bar, as we raise the slab bar, people are going to swim over rather than going down. So that way, I believe more and more people will be coming in the tax debt, and more people will. And he rightly, Nagesh rightly said, with the increased technology, with the increased computerization, artificial intelligence, it will be next to impossible to hide any income or anything which is from the tax department. That's I believe that will also help in increasing the tax collection.
I'm sure that's music to the ears of the finance minister, and she would be listening to it with great interest. Mr. Nangia, apart from the fact that you've had this 1 lakh crore rupee gift given to the public, what are the 3 or 4 more interesting parts that you see in the budget that have been included in the good part of taxation?
So I will not limit only to taxation, but in this budget, very important thing I want to share up before is on the startup actually. And I want to tell you some very internal data. Government started with a corpus of 10,000 crores this year for the startup. This is the second time the government has started. The first time it was a few years back, that 10,000 crores invested by the investor have become 90,000 crores now. See the multiple reaction, they all invested because these are the all venture VC investment, they were doing it or doing the investment in-house. The value of that investment has become 90,000 crores. The government, what they did, they announced another 10,000 crores. They announced another 20,000 crores to drive private sector-led research, development and innovation which will be a game changer for the deep tech ecosystem. This is another first time the government has announced it. And third, let me tell you some very interesting thing. There was a startup, India, we had a government started a scheme of 2016. Then there was an Atal Innovation Mission. There was an angel tax abolished. One of the biggest painful thing for the startup industry, the government decided, take it out. Let's make it non-taxable. Another was, we call it reverse flipping. People who were going out, government changed the law, you come back, we'll welcome you with an easier law. We call reverse flipping. Come back to, either people move to Singapore, they say angel people, startup people, come back to India on a low, easy tax regime is concerned. Now, every startup has to be registered with DPITT. There are 160,000 DPITT registered as compared to 500 in 2016. Just in 8 years, 155,000 startups have been registered with DPIT. 2016, a very interesting figure, fund raised by startup, 8 billion. 2024, 150, see the fuel they are adding to the economy. 110 unicorns added in India. And fundraise, I just mentioned, this is something on startup which I just want to share you. The complete ecosystem of startup was there. And you had one more question?
I'll take that to Mr. Jain.
Okay.
Mr. Jain, what are the 2 or 3 things that you're looking forward to in the new tax bill which might be of benefit to all of us here?
See, I always say the taxpayers is more interested in substantial tax relief rather than administrative relief. But as a tax consultant, my expectation will be more in this bill, this new bill, the administrative reforms which are important for the aspects. One thing, as I said, sometimes I wonder how do we can make the life easier of the taxpayers. And one thing interesting, which I also find sometimes difficult, I am required to pay tax at a particular rate, then there is a surcharge, then there is a cess. A taxpayer is not bothered about it if, as on today, I say 30% tax, 15% surcharge, 4% education cess, it comes to roughly 36%. So if I am told that you need to pay 36%, and how does the government does it? It's arithmetic internally with the help of the computer. It will make my life easier. Now every taxpayer wonders whether what is my tax rate, what is the surcharge, what is the education charges. You can just simplify it that way. That's the expectation which I see. Another is that sometimes we find that some tax collection, TCS provision, etc., are introduced just to get an audit trail so the transaction is not missed out or the tax is not missed out on that part. I believe with the GST coming into offering and every information about all goods and services being captured in the GST and network. Now, income tax department and the GST department, I say direct taxes and indirect taxes because customs, all those will be there. They should use the data internally and make the life of the taxpayer who is required to fill in so many forms, so many information and multiple information that we can easily erase out on that part. Third, which I can believe is sometime, which of course the finance minister and the revenue secretary has given an indication, we will change assessment year, previous year, all those because common man is not able to understand all that issues on that part. The demand collection part also, in case when computerization is happening, why don't we have a ledger account of a taxpayer where we can have a complete account, what is your tax payable get debited, what is your credit get credited, and you are liable to pay the net balances also only on this issue. Why we keep a track for each assessment year, each penalty, everything separately, that makes life very difficult. Administrative reform, this can happen. Of course, we have introduced online computerization that has made easier, but the new tax administration, I think the new tax bill can take care of this. I believe some of the reform will be there, but we must keep in mind, sometimes we believe once this bill is introduced in the parliament and get passed, it will be a static bill, it will not be. Tax law or particularly financial legislation can never be static, it will be dynamic, and we must expect years after years, same type of amendment coming, what we are getting this time also. Even in this bill, finance bill, which was introduced on 1st February, I was wondering, a new income tax bill is going to be introduced in 1 week.
Yeah.
Still, we have 86 clauses to amend the present income tax act.
Oh, wow.
Just imagine it.
So, Mr. Nangia, would you add to it? Any 2 or 3 changes that you expect in the upcoming bill?
Yes. I have 3, 4. There should be 1 or 2 tedious rates. Let's make it hygiene.
Okay.
If you have a rate 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 20, it becomes extremely clumsy.
Okay.
It becomes extremely difficult for the individual taxpayer to fill his tax return. I want a very important thing, which I said it today also. MSME contributes almost like 35-40%, maybe more, to the GDP of the government actually. And make it easier for them. They are not have a big turnover. Why can't we introduce a presumptive tax for MSMEs? It will be the biggest boon which will do to the taxpayer, where all MSMEs, you will be subject to tax at one flat rate. Presumptive, your profit is presumed to be so much, we are not bothered about your books, accounts, or audit, anything, and that should be your tax. That's the biggest boon which will happen. Rationalize time-bound rulings, basically. That's one thing. Second, litigation matter. Reduce the tenure of litigation. That's the extremely painful, have a robust dispute resolution mechanism. These are something extremely, extremely important with the government.
Can I just add to this very quickly? I think this is one of the expectations that I also have from new income tax bill, is that government will take some tangible measures to reduce litigation. And one of the things that was being debated earlier is a process of mediation. So globally in many countries what happens is there is a large tax demand, I can go and settle it with the department. One of the things which Mr. Nangia talked about is presumptive taxation. That wherever you have doubt or interpretation issues to say, okay, you pay tax at a certain percentage. Like this time in the budget, they have done it for non-residents providing services to electronic sectors to say 25% of your income will be taxed at whatever rate. And no question asked, no interpretation issue. So I think some of those things, if you do more and more in complicated situations, then you will reduce litigation.
Okay. Pratik, this one's for you only. There is this acronym that's going around in boardrooms, which is return on time involved as far as the market is concerned. So you have ROCE, you have ROA, and now you have ROTE. Return on time as far as markets are concerned when it comes to how boards are being occupied by taking care of all the government-related compliances that they have to fulfill. And instead of spending time on maybe Capex, maybe marketing plans, they are just utilizing that time to fill up government forms. In this new tax code, what are the 2 or 3 things that you don't want seen?
I mean, no new taxes and no new cesses and surcharges. Clearly, no new forms. I mean, much more simplified forms. But I think it's a journey, right? I mean, economic survey also talks about deregulation to a large extent. You saw budget, there are a lot of decriminalization of provisions, etc. Over a period of time, you'll see even income tax form. It has got simplified to a large extent. So I'm not expecting anything new coming in. I think point that Mr. Ved Jain made, that if you want to track a transaction and you already have data on GST, why do you need to again capture it for income tax? So a much more collaborative approach in different departments. In fact, globally, I mean, there are countries where there is no separate department for income tax and indirect tax. There's only one tax department. So are we moving away from 2 different tax departments to a single tax department over a period of time, which was also a recommendation of one of the other committees which were set up a few years ago. Some of those things will have to be seen. I think life will be much simpler after new tax code.
I'll just add one interesting thing. One of the income tax form is 60 pages. 60 pages. Then I did, sorry, I don't file it, I was checking. It was 80 pages earlier. The government has made it 60 pages. I'm not happy they've reduced it. I'm feeling so bad. It consists of, imagine the information you give to the government. And this form is live today. It is applicable.
So you want that cut down to 6 pages or 2?
I'm misreading, sorry.
I'm saying you want those 60 pages cut down to 6 or 2?
Let's be fair. Let's not be unreasonable. It should capture all the information, but it should not be so much clustered. So much information become a very big, painful process.
Mr. Nangia, with this phone in everybody's hand here, the government knows everything.
I know that.
A single paisa that you spend,
I know that.
they know it. So why do they need 60 pages? That's my point.
That's a very good point. Very valid point.
Absolutely.
That's a very valid point.
Yeah. Mr. Ved Jain, I'm coming to you again, and I'll come back to the same question, old tax regime versus the new tax regime. I did ask the finance minister earlier this afternoon, and she said that she's not going to be shutting down the old tax regime. And therefore, it makes the task for all the taxpayers even more complicated, whether I choose the old tax regime or the new tax regime again. How many people do you think, after the amendments that have been made now in the new budget, will now choose the new tax regime, and who should choose it? Will it be 100%?
Sakshi, I did an arithmetic on 1st February in the night. I tried my best to find out who is the person will like to continue with the old regime instead of the new regime. So I could find out only, technically many people may not, I think maybe are unable to understand it. Under the new regime, you are not entitled to carry forward your losses incurred in the house property, etc. So in case you have purchased a property where you're paying huge interest and you are incurring a loss, I believe old regime still may be beneficial. But I agree, now more than 99% people will switch over to the new regime. And why the finance minister said that she is not going to withdraw the old regime is, the reason is obvious. We normally use a word, rule of estoppel. So once I have opted for a old regime which is continuing and I have committed something out of it, the government say, okay, all right, over a period, let it die down naturally rather than government withdrawing it. We started with 15% in the new regime. We ended now in 75. And next year it will be more than 80, 85. And next year, because this new regime which today she has introduced of 12 lakh rupees will be applicable for financial year 25, 26. So those tax returns will be filed in the July 26. So there I believe almost 100% people will go in the new regime or old regime, because the way that she has given the concession and it's going on, and no new concession are going to come in the old regime. That's, I believe, that's the issue.
Okay, so I think that's the biggest takeaway. 100% people probably looking forward to the new tax regime, and therefore there will not be any need for the government.
And I may just add one thing. Now, you would have heard it, how much benefit the person gets under the new regime in the new structure. The finance minister gave some idea about the numbers of the figure, and she said that a person having an income of 24 lakh rupees is going to get 1 lakh 10,000 rupees. And then I did a homework, including surcharge and education.
Yes.
A person having an income of more than 2 crore rupees, he's liable of a 15% surcharge. So his tax saving under the new regime in this new structure, tax structure, will be more than 1 lakh 26,000 rupees.
Okay, so what we
just
were hoping...
Just imagine it, the issue is...
that this tax bonanza is for the lower strata. Probably it has again helped those which are earning 2 crore plus in saving more taxes, I believe.
Mr. Jain, the other thing that you have to arrange is you've done this homework. All of us in the room are happy to pay that 15% surcharge. You need to arrange 2 crores.
I wish.
Thank you so much, Pratik, Mr. Nangia and Mr. Jain, for being with us on this special edition. And thank you so much. You've been a wonderful audience for this exciting conversation, engaging one, and of course, a very, very important one at that.